when we were launching the sector working groups, and they went ahead with their duty of coming up with their proposals, and I hope that has been done. We are now back here today to review those proposals for the next 3 days, and of course incorporating the opinions of Kenyans. And in the next 3 days, I believe that is the real budget making basis, because public participation, it is not just a good thing to do, but we are also bound by law to do it. Because Article 201 of our Constitution, especially A, proposes that we have to do public participation and incorporate the opinions of Kenyans in all public financial matters. And therefore, what you are doing today is a very, and for the next 3 days, is a very important element in the budget. It is not just about fulfilling the legal side of making the budget or handling public finances or the process of handling public finances, but it is the basis. Because what is a government? Because majority of us here, I suppose, and especially from the CS to us as members of parliament, to the PSs, we are serving Kenyans in the government. Whose budget are we making? Is it our budget as members who have the opportunity to serve Kenyans in government, or is it the budget for the Kenyan people? And I suppose it's the budget for the Kenyan people. And therefore, giving the Kenyan people 3 days to have their valuable input in the budget is actually giving them the role they should be taking, because we are only representatives, and we should open up space for them to tell us what they expect from us, and especially insofar as budget is concerned. Even the money that we appropriate and we are budgeting for is not our money. This money is the funds that we receive from the Kenyan people, and especially through taxes. And therefore, again, we are only here as first among equals across all the 50 million Kenyans. And I also want to remind ourselves that the people I'm mentioning, and especially referencing, those of us who have the opportunity to serve Kenyans in government, we are only roughly around 1 million people. But the Kenyan population is around 50 million. And therefore, opening up space for the 49 million other Kenyans, and even the other part of the 1 million who are not part of this hall today, is also appropriate. But even as we make this budget, because we are still in the basis of making the budget for the 2023-2024 financial year, we have to ask ourselves on what basis we are operating, and especially the circumstances. And Prof, you remember we were here in November. Unfortunately, the conditions that were there then are the same conditions we have today. Internationally or globally speaking, the same challenges we had in November are still very present today. Number one, insofar as rising interest rates is concerned, and even if we look at the economies that are pace setters, from the US, for example, they have had to raise their interest rate. The Fed has had to raise their interest rates 7 times in the year 2022. The UK, again, have had to have the same measures. All other OECD countries have had to do the same, and especially trying to tame the inflation that we have globally. It is still present, unfortunately. We also are faced with the same challenge we faced in November, insofar as disruption of supply chain is concerned. And this has, of course, been premised on what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. And again, that has brought about another challenge, where we have seen majority of the global economies across the globe adopting nationalism. Most of the countries now are looking inward, because the disruption from what is happening in Russia, Ukraine, have necessitated that many countries have to look for supply chains that they can control. And the supply chains that you can only control are the supply chains within your boundaries. And therefore, that is also another challenge insofar as globalization is concerned, that out of the challenges in supply chains, then many economists are looking inward and therefore are adopting nationalism. Coming to the local perspective and the circumstances locally, they are not very far detached from what is happening internationally. One of the challenges that we have now in the country, and I'm sure all of us are aware of it, is drought. We are facing a ravaging drought, almost unprecedented for the last 25 years and above. This, of course, has brought about inflation. And I believe even as we talk about inflation in the international arena, the inflation we are facing in this country, and especially now in Kenya, is more exacerbated by the drought. It is more inflation driven by scarcity more than availability of or more money in the economy. And therefore, again, that is a challenge that is cutting across globally, but also locally, we are feeling it. And I don't need to buttress that point, because we all know about the high cost of living insofar as the commodities that Kenyans consume every day is concerned, some of it stemming from drought. Because even as we come up with the formula of inflation, food takes up a huge proportion of it. And again, that is a component of drought that I referenced there before. In the year 2021 December, the inflation was around 5.7%. The same period last year, that is 2022, it was around 9.1%. And therefore, that again justifies the pain that Kenyans are going through at the moment. And of course now, the general conditions have led to unemployment. And when I'm talking about the local conditions, I'm talking about macro in terms of the blanket, and also I'd want to mention a few that are sectoral. Because in sectoral, just to cite a few, and I'm not trying to paint a grey picture of the circumstances in our economy, if you look, for example, at our education sector, we are transforming now into CBC. That comes with its cost. It is an opportunity to Kenyan, but it is a cost in terms of the physicals. We are now hiring over 30,000 teachers. It is an opportunity for many Kenyans, which is a good thing, but also a challenge in terms of the physical. In the recent past, Prof, I've had an opportunity to meet with the majority of our vice-chancellors from our various universities. When I was in school, majority of them were bubbling and happy. But the majority I've been meeting of late are fallen and sad because of the state of our universities. And I'm sure even the president is coming up with a way to recalibrate again how we fund our universities, because it is cutting across. Every university in Kenya, they are indebted. They are not even meeting their obligations. So sector-wise also, we have challenges, and I'm only citing education to represent the others that needs our input. Of course, the rising debt, and I suppose now, and I don't want to purport to work for the Treasury, we must be approaching somewhere close to 10 trillion Kenya shillings in terms of debt. And we have to think about this. There is a great correlation if you study the trends in Kenya from 1963 up to date. There is a clear correlation between our debt to GDP ratio and GDP growth. And I don't know what comes first, Prof, because if you look at Kenya from 1963 coming to 1980, we had a GDP growth of just around 6.9%, which is exemplary. Around the same time, our debt to GDP ratio was around 28.6%. Coming now to 1980s, coming up to around 2000, we had our debt to GDP ratio rising to around 53.1%, while also our GDP itself was contracting in terms of comparative from the other period that I referenced. I mean, it was slower than the previous. From 2002, coming to 2012, again we had a lower GDP, debt to GDP ratio, coming all the way to around 34% in June of 2022, at a period when we also had a rising GDP. Now, from 2013, let's say to last year thereabout, we had a spike in terms of our debt to GDP ratio up to the close documented figure of around 68 point something. And I believe it could be higher because it's a matter of the other side of GDP. And around the same time, we had GDP growth again falling up to lows of below 3% in some period within that time. So we have a challenge in terms of debt is concerned. And we have to bite the bullet as Kenyans. And I'm not saying that debt is entirely bad. Debt is not entirely bad. Even the other time we were here, we talked about it because it is a perpetual challenge that we have to face, and especially in the macro sense. Even some of our development partners, their countries are also indebted, actually more than Kenya in terms of debt to GDP ratio. Japan is over 250% debt to GDP ratio. And we like referencing those countries because they do well. US is over 100%. Other countries, even within the OECD, are also over 100%. But the circumstances are very different. We cannot compare a cow, for example, with an orange. The situation of our country, Kenya, is so different from those other countries that we have to look at ourselves singularly insofar as debt is concerned. How much is the cost of, for example, the Japanese government borrowing? To some point, it goes to negative rates. The 10-year board of Japan, compared to the Kenyan, you'll find that there is nothing actually comparable. And therefore, we cannot continue to perpetuate borrowing by referencing countries that borrow and they are doing well. And also citing Japan itself, insofar as whether accumulating debt is a good thing. They have accumulated debt. The country, again, faces deflation. And after facing deflation associated with this huge debt, we find that the GDP of Japan has not had a real growth for the last 30 years. And therefore, then, looking at all the global scenarios, and especially insofar as debt is concerned, I believe we have a challenge as a country that we lower our debt to GDP ratio, because our country is not to a level where we should be comparing with those other countries that have borrowed more than us. Cost is one. The other thing is, of course, currency. Those other countries, they borrow in their own currencies, for example, because majority they borrow internally. Here in Kenya, when you have a disruption in terms of our currency, even in the current scenario, if our external debt is 4 trillion shillings, a disruption of only 1% in our currency puts a load of over 40 billion to our nominal debt. And therefore, again, this is something we have to keep on working on so that we don't add up unnecessary expense, and especially in our physicals. The other thing is the use. We can no longer continue to borrow any money, even 1 shilling, to put into recurrence. All this money has to go into investments. I also want to say something brief about the budget composition, because that is exactly the reason we are here. And I'll be talking about the current year, financial year. And on the budget side, and I'm sure we are all aware, there is now the revenue side and there is the demand side for money. That is the expenditure side. On the revenue side, what fills our basket? Number one is our direct taxes. And we are proposing in the current financial year's budget to raise around 2.14 trillion shillings. I hope it will go higher. This is also a challenge in terms of macro, because if you look at the revenues that we collect as a country, we are just around 14 to 15% of our GDP in terms of our revenues. And therefore, we are collecting around 2.1. But if we are to collect, and I'm sure even the KRA is represented here, if we are to collect money, and especially those taxes, around the same percentage as our peers within the economies that looks like us, who collect around 25%, we would actually be collecting 3.5 trillion Kenya shillings. We would actually be drawing a budget that is surplus, not deficit. If we are to raise revenues at levels of South Africa, which is around 28.6%, we will be collecting 4 trillion Kenya shillings. Therefore, this is just trying to show that we have enough internal resources if we are to use GDP as a measure. We only need to streamline how we collect taxes. We become more innovative so that we can collect more, because the opportunity is there insofar as GDP is concerned, global, which is 14%. The other one is A&A. A&A at around 300 billion, and I believe we can do better. We can do better in terms of optimizing the collection of revenues at source. Grants is not our obligation. It is the obligation of the giver, and therefore we may not determine or do much about it. But deficit now is around 870 approximately billion. If we do that for the next 5 years, I don't think we will have a stable country. And I am just buttressing the other point I had about debt. On the expenditure side, and I'm doing this to show that all of us who are represented here, we are actually trying to pull the blanket to our side. The blanket is not enough for everyone, and it is winter. The resources are not sufficient, and therefore we are scrabbling for them. That is why I'm giving this simple data. The expenditure side, the money that goes to our salaries, to pay us, majority of us here and others, working for the 49 million Kenyans, is approximately 900 billion. The recurrent non-salary, the recurrent to maintain us while still earning salary, is around 600 billion, referencing this financial year. We have CFS, debt repayment and others, payment to commissions. It is still a huge budget at around 860 thereabout billion shillings. And then we have another legal obligation of around 370 billion to set to our counties. It's not just legal, but it's also as we support devolution. Therefore, I have given that reality so that we see clearly we must work on our physicals in terms of reducing our deficit and work on our revenues so that we have a more balanced budget. What are the general points I would want us to have in mind as we progress to make the basis for our economic growth in 2023-2024? Our economy, and especially, let's say, for as long as we can remember, has been growing on the basis of three things. One is public investment. Two is public consumption. And number three is private consumption. And I would want us now to shed off these official faces we are wearing so that we can digest this point. This is our country, Kenya. Here is a map. The GDP growth we keep reporting. What has been the driver? What are the drivers of these whatever percentages we were giving? One is the roads we are building, the railways, and etc. That is public investment. The other side is public consumption, including the part of the recurrent that I gave in our budget for this financial year. And number three is private consumption. If we are to draw a circle, public investment, public consumption, and then there is private consumption, we can see there is something lacking for that circle to complete, which I suppose is private investment, private production. So we end up having an economy where consumption is powered by imports. If you look at, for example, manufacturing imports in Kenya is to a tune of 1 trillion shillings. But manufacturing exports is around 800 billion. So the deficit there is 800 billion. If you look at the physical I gave about the macro deficit, the physical deficit, it is 862 billion. And you can see they correlate. I'm just trying to cut down the points so that I finalize, we give Prof time. So we have to look at how we can improve this private production. Because this private production, if it completes, then rising consumption becomes a good thing to our economy. But then we have inequalities in Kenya. The haves, and those who don't have actually don't have. So we have a few people with very high purchasing power. What does the high purchasing power do? High purchasing power comes with refined preferences. These refined preferences, some cannot be found within. And I'm sure most of us here can relate. People with high purchasing power, their furniture, the taste of furniture cannot be found locally. So their taste for furniture comes from somewhere else. The Gazras they drive, of course, majority are not found locally, but they are at a higher expense. The suits they wear cannot be found locally. So they end up now wearing an imported suit. So this now refined taste, again, adds into the load of imports. And therefore, if we span out this private production, I believe it solves many problems. It solves almost triple rent. Employment comes in there, taxes comes in there, and rising productivity for every Kenyan, which leads to rising income for majority of Kenyans. As I come to the close, why do we do these supplementary budgets? And why do they even go to the core? Because I believe a supplementary budget is correcting an error you made before. So we make an error, we correct, and then we make another one, we correct. I believe, and this is the direction of even the president, that once we make our budget, we must be able to live with that budget for a whole year. And if we must have a supplementary budget, as we make the budget, and I'm sure we'll be also proposing some legal safeguards to that, there are some things we must safeguard in our main budget that must not be touched in our supplementary budget. So that you as an accounting officer, once your money is ring-fenced, for example, for development, you don't need to spend time chasing for your money. Number two, PS, let me just be honest, and our CS. Majority of these people, because I can see the faces, they are my friends. We have interacted in many forums. Majority of the people in government institutions, they spend their money in Treasury chasing money. They spend their time, in Treasury chasing money. Why should a director general, instead of building roads, be chasing money? They chase money because anytime this budget can be cut, a supplementary budget can always come. And therefore you want your money as soon as possible. We need to find even legal safeguards that when we budget, then the accounting officer responsible for example, NIA, should go on to do irrigation and now leave Treasury, which is timed, to release their money, and they should be sure that the budget we do, for example, the one we are doing in April, that there's some money that is safeguarded up to the next financial year when it is ending. And supplementary budget should only come to correct absorption charges. Where we see we give money, there is no absorption. I believe that is the only point where we should be doing supplementary budgets. CEC is also in counties. Most of the CEC's finance, they spend more time in the office of the controller of budget more than they spend in their office. I wonder whether they are paid to follow money or money should follow them, then they do work. Again, I believe that is a component of poor budgeting. We must make a budget that lasts for an entire year. Thank you very much. I wish you a prosperous new year.
Let's give the chairman another round of applause. It's now my distinguished honor to welcome the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Economic Planning, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u. Karibu, Waziri.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you very much, Dede Nyoro, for that presentation. It's always difficult when you follow up with someone who is taller than you. You're trying to bring yourself down. Let me say that I'm very happy to be here, or invited guest, the chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee of Parliament, Bwana Dede Nyoro. I'm very happy to speak after you because you preempt and make my work very easy in terms of what I'm going to say. Let me say that my colleagues, principal secretaries that are here, and the development partners and invited guests, members of the fourth estate, ladies and gentlemen, let me say that I'm very happy. Oh, come on, this thing is not well positioned. Do I speak standing? Okay, no problem. If it's okay, you can hear me? Okay, it is my pleasure to be here this morning, and especially to officiate on the opening of public sector hearings for the financial year 2023-2024, and the medium-term budget preparations. And the purpose of organizing this forum is to give all stakeholders an opportunity to interrogate the proposed sector budgets and give their inputs on planned government priorities as well as programs for the period. And I'm very happy that Dede Nyoro just put us through what we need to do. It's only that he also talked about supplementary budget that is coming up, but I think most of the time the supplementary budget comes in to cover the changing circumstances, especially economic environment, but also changing priorities of government. But that is in addition to what he has added, so we do believe that it comes in to help us to shape the reality in terms as we go along. But the most important thing is that the activity we are starting today, that is supposed to address market failures and even problems that arise, as well as institutional, should I say, shortcomings. So for us, it's very, very important that we get suggestions from the public and the Kenyans in terms of where we are going and how we deal with those challenges that are facing Kenyans from time to time, and especially in this planning cycle. I therefore wish to sincerely thank all the participants for finding time to attend to this event and make presentations as well as discussions, and I do hope a fair amount of effort and even positive discussions will take place, and we'll take that outcome very well and very positively so that we can actually implement the issues that we'd like to have to implement. Let me briefly talk about public participation. Ladies and gentlemen, public participation in the budgeting process is an important requirement in our Constitution, but it's also important in diverse ways. First, it enables the stakeholders to engage in the planning process to identify their development needs and improve the process, and also propose homegrown solutions to address the challenges that I've seen, the challenges that may come in the future. In this respect, it means that it becomes an endogenous process of owning the process and also helping us actually to develop in terms of the endogenous constraints that we have. The second one is that it helps in promoting inclusivity in the budget-making process. And so it helps us to enhance a greater ownership and participation of Kenyans in subsequent program implementation, and even trying to account or even to question the process in future. Third, it allows harmonization of government interventions and also minimizes duplication of efforts and wastage of resources. Fourth, it enables the citizens to better appreciate the resource constraint, and I'm very happy that Mheshimiwa Dede Nyoro alluded to that, because if you don't understand the resource constraint, then it means that you cannot appropriately address the appropriate solutions. And also, for us, it is very, very important that it allows us to prioritize what programs can be taken at a particular time. And finally, it enhances the openness and transparency by providing a platform for receiving feedback from the public on the effectiveness of public spending, and that is a very, very important step towards accountability. Let me turn to economic outlook. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that from the literature and all the things that I've read through, the outlook for 2023 is not looking very good. There are clear signals that it's going to be a tough year. But the global economy is one good example in terms of where we are going. Multiple factors are likely to come into play and affect the growth prospects across the globe. For instance, if the Russia-Ukrainian conflict continues, it means that the global supply chains will continue to be disrupted. It also means that those supply disruptions are likely to affect the relative price structures in most of the economies, and so inflation, but also is going to affect incomes from the exporters that depend on that region. So in a sense, we have to be prepared for some binding constraints that will be coming up. Indeed, some parts of the world are already in economic crisis. Low-income countries have been hit hard by the supply disruptions, the signaling in terms of debt. Actually, Dede Nyoro even tried to show the computation of what happens to external debt when the exchange rate itself depreciates. The surges in food prices and even commodity prices, and the devastating effects of climate change. And this is coming at the time when we also have limited access to foreign finance and even foreign capital markets. So even in the middle and high income economies, it's a combination of factors that are hitting the cost of living. We have witnessed in Kenya, for example, that food security and climate change has produced a severe crisis that has compounded the supply disruptions. For us, we have seen that food security and climate change is going to be a pillar and a policy paradigm that we have to look at, because it affects poverty, it affects inequality, and even currently we have seen that it is producing social conflicts because of competition of the resources available, especially water. So the financial year 2023-2024 medium-term budget is being prepared against that severe and very constrained background. But of course, having said that, I could also talk about debt-related risks. It's a topical issue in Kenya, and I think Mheshimiwa Dede Nyoro has alluded to it, and I'm sure the sector working groups are going to pick it up and give it an adequate treatment. According to the World Bank, ladies and gentlemen, the world's poorest countries have been spending the highest share of their revenue on debt service payments. And I'm sure our sector working group will even break it down on the Kenyan side to actually show the actual figures and what is happening. The debt-related risks are on the increase for low-income and middle-income countries. It is on this recognition that the government of Kenya will continue to pursue a process or a strategy of fiscal consolidation to push for a platform for debt sustainability. But we also want to make sure that we have a strategy for gradual reduction of the overall fiscal deficit and the pace of debt accumulation over the medium term, as well as utilize some of the instruments that we can use for an effective liability management. And most people have been asking what that is. Essentially, what we are really saying is that we can actually reduce expensive debt and substitute that with more concessional debt that is long-term, and that allows you to create fiscal space. The policy will be supported by enhanced revenue mobilization, and institutional austerity measures on non-priority recurrent expenditures, as well as redirecting resources to finance priority growth supporting programs. And because I noticed that in my earlier life, I had dealt with these issues of debt so much, and I think for those of you who would like to be interested, we've done some work on growing with debt, and especially from the African Economic Research Consortium, a special issue that was published in Journal of African Economists in December 2021 is a good example. And we talked about growing with debt because I think Mheshimiwa Dede Nyoro talked about so many things about debt situation and when debt to GDP signals whether there is growth. But I think at that level, I would like maybe even the sector working groups to look at the efficiency of investment and capital accumulation when you are using debt. Growing with debt is a major important literature, starts all the way back from Marshall Plan. So we know that it is an appropriate strategy, but we also have to diagnose the efficiency of public investment with debt, with the debt-funded projects, and how it accumulates and stimulates growth. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the latest forecast from the IMF, global growth is likely to be very slow, or is forecast to be slow at about 3.2%. That was forecast in 2022, and it's likely only to rise slightly to 2.7 in 2023. And for the emerging markets and developing economies, growth forecast is about 3.7. If some of us look at it in terms of net out population growth, you can see actually the actual effect that would reduce poverty and produce sustainable growth is very limited. Advanced economies growth is forecast to be around 1%. The euro area growth is projected to be about 0.5%. China's economy is forecast to grow at about 4.4%. And when we come to our region, the emerging market growth is forecast to grow at 2.9%. And the whole of sub-Saharan Africa is actually projected to grow at 3.7%. So essentially, you can see how constrained growth is. And my earlier work in this area again talks to itself. We have shown that strong growth is very, very important for reducing poverty. Strong growth supplemented with targeted social protection programs will actually sustain growth and even work on the side of inequality in the long term. So it means that it is pro-growth strategy that is very important for poverty reduction. And so it means that when you have low growth outcome, then it means that you do very little in terms of poverty. But coming back to our own setup and the bottom-up economic transformation that we're proposing, that the current government is actually proposing, the current administration is proposing, and which we internally ourselves, and I talk here as a Kenyan and as an economist, buy in so much, and we can explain it. I don't want to talk about it because it's something that I can talk about until cows come home. But let me say a little bit of that is that the Kenya's economic growth
We apologize for that technical hitch there, but that is CS Treasury and planning Professor Njuguna Ndungu officiating the public sector hearing for the financial year 2023-2024 for the proposed medium-term budget. Of course, a key component and a key element as enshrined in the Constitution, Article 201 of the Constitution, as well as the Public Finance Management Act, Section 36, that before a budget is made, then public participation needs to be taking place. And basically, that is what is happening there at KICC. But back in studio, we were having a conversation on just women and leadership, and basically want to cap it up at this particular point. And what better way to do that by giving my guests just 20 seconds each to give their last words. Let me start with you, Judy, very quickly.
My parting shots, of course we could have loved to say more, but I love what you did with at KICC, that's good. Parting shots, I just want to thank you for inviting me here. I want to thank Kenya, I want to thank God, my family, but also want to thank my sponsors. And primarily what I'm wearing is made by Chic Africa. They're located in Lavington. So Wakenya wenzangu, if I can talk in Kiswahili, let's do this to Saidiane, because I cannot do this alone. And Peter and I cannot do this alone. So, and also if you could get in touch with the First Lady, please, we'd love to work with you, work with us. God bless you all as I leave. Baraka Tele.
Yeah, Peter, Daktari, very quickly.
Thank you so much, Doreen. In fact, giving is very important, because when you give, that's when more come. So I'd add, fellow Kenyans, wherever you see your colleagues, you should be able to part with something small towards them. You never know that 1,000 shillings is very important for someone, or even 100 shillings, and that can improve their life. Yeah. Thank you so much for having us.
Well said. Yep. And definitely thank you so much for your time. Highly appreciated nonetheless. All right. I have been speaking to Judy Oyuyo, who is an evangelist as well as a head of space. Speak to Motivate, yes, as well as Dr. Peter Hayombe, a public health consultant, and basically what has formed the center of our conversation is just looking at what women are doing in their spaces of leadership, in their spaces of influence. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately, good morning, Kenya, from me, and on behalf of the entire team, Asante Sana, we pave way for News Check. Good morning.
Ilayska umada.
If you wanna rise, you gotta fall and stand up a million times.
Every day we are go fight. I think it's best that you forget me.
Nothing they can do to stop this music. Sins of the Father are visited from all in a never-ending circle.
Maisha ni mafupi, hivyo si vyema kumaliza muda mwingi katika malumbano. Hesabu baraka zako, wathamini rafiki zako na tabasamu ili udumishe amani.
Kupata maisha, bonyeza *811 *816 hash. *811 *816 hash.
Is the chance of a lifetime. Beige team.
Wrong answer.
Oh, that is the wrong answer. It's all right here on the Second Chance Game Show each and every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. right here on the station you love, KBC Channel 1.
You and her can be Baba Jane's wives.
Sharing is caring.
Karibu chai iko tayari.
But your mom needs help.
Enda. Ukiachwa kitu yoyote hauwezi deal nayo.
Mbona uko kwa bwana wako?
Huku ni kwetu.
I've never killed anyone before.
If mom is not happy, I can't be, yeah?
Could you please come over?
Mark is trouble.
Yaani utaki niingie hata kwako?
Mixing business with personal matters. Baba Jane. I love you so much, Kristen.
Are you too serious about this marriage business?
Kwani nasikia uchungu kila mahali?
Hapa sini kidogo. Wasa.
Alishona kasahau cotton ndani ya mwili.
Yes, akaacha ndani ya mwili.
That doctor. She want to kill my wife.
Mambo ya kudunga sindano na wewe ni watchman inapelekana namna gani?
Ulionyesha mimi ni dungange shindano kwa sababu
nakuuliza inapelekana namna gani?
Inapelekana ni mgonjwa na kudungwa.
Mgonjwa kimesa pamba unafanya nini?
Symptoms za kumeza na za kuachwa ni very different.
Hata kukula pamba ni wewe ndio, you are a doctor. Na wewe ndio hata pipi yangu yuko ndio huyu.
Kama hujui kizungu ongea.
Don't leave makasi inside the stomach of the human being.
And don't underestimate yourself. The only people who do that are ignorant.
I heard from you.
All the postcards you sent went missing after I moved.
All the postcards you sent went missing when I moved, and I never found them. Which is why I think it was the right choice to cut things off once and for all.
Thank you.
Hello, Miss Jia.
Oh, I'm getting prepared for school.
You need a ride to the airport?
What?
Hello, Miss Jia.
Aren't you leaving for Denmark today? When is the flight?
I don't know if you've noticed this at all, but Fabiola has changed quite a lot ever since she spent that night in the stables with a veterinarian, sir.
Please get a couple of horses ready.
Your boyfriend said he wouldn't go with you on Father.
Because you're coming with me. I dare you to kiss me again.
And to prove that my apology is totally sincere, I'm offering you a job right now.
What we feel is too strong to just let it go.
I'm supposedly going to get married. No.
Oh, serio? You scared me. What are you doing here?
Oh, I didn't hear you come in.
Oh.
Years ago.
Naye Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam anashauri kuwa kuna zama ambazo itafikia ambazo binadamu atakuwa anaamka akiwa ni Muislamu lakini jioni atazamia akiwa ni kafiri.
Harakisheni kwenda kufanya matendo mema lillah. Na yale matendo mema yawe na sharti mbili. Iwe mukhlasa lillah, ufanye na ikhlasi lillah kwa ajili ya Allah. Ukiswali swali lillah kwa ajili ya Allah.
Mike ni tano, number 5.
Good morning once again.
January 2023 it is. Good morning. This is the Great KBC and this is KBC News Checker program that is designed to ensure that we keep you updated on all the latest happening in the country and also around you. My name is Bentro Njue, welcoming you to this program. And as I have said earlier, is that we try to keep you afloat on what is happening in the country, what we are expecting in the next couple of minutes or an hour or so. Is President William Ruto, who will be at the Embakasi Administration Police Training College, where again he will be presiding over the passing out of police officers, and will be crossing over there to get that live feed for you, the viewer. Another thing that is currently happening, we have the CAS, East African Community Arid and Semi-Arid Land and Regional Development Presser by Rebecca Miano on drought situation and management in the country, that will be happening at the Cooperative House here in Nairobi. But away from that, we are having a live discussion on the current affairs of the country. And before I introduce our panelist, in his first executive order of 2023, President William Ruto has reorganized some of his government documents in an aim of guaranteeing service delivery and also putting things into perspective in as far as governance is concerned. DP Gachagua has already been added some roles and will also oversee the coffee reforms and also coordinate a number of activities, the government and national the national government and counties as well, with the Prime CS also working hand in hand to ensure that government projects have been or are going on smoothly as enshrined in law. Well, let me now rope in my panel of experts. Let me begin from extreme right. We have Kuria Kimani, who is the MP for Molo and also the chair of the Finance and Planning Committee. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Just next to him, we have Daniel Mogoria, who is a governance expert. And just next to me, we have one of our resident analysts, Wamboi Shadrack, who is a constitutional lawyer and also a governance expert. Karibuni sana. Mheshimiwa, let me begin with you. Moments ago, we had a presser by CS Treasury Professor Njuguna Ndungu in regards to, basically it was the launch of the public sector hearing for the budget 2023-2024. Maybe you can touch on something in regards to the exercise that we has just started today.
So thank you very much, and good morning viewers from across the country and especially from the great constituency of Molo. So what you've seen is the start of, not only the start, but the continuation of the budget cycle of 2023-2024. And one of the things that have been very fundamental in the new constitution, and that we even enacted an act of parliament, the Public Participation Act of 2019, is the role of public participation in all government processes, in all government procedures, and including the budget. And my cue, this is such an important exercise that in the absence of it, then anybody could actually go to court and challenge the constitutionality of the 2023-2024 budget. And this time around, our Kenya Kwanza government has agreed that we're not just going to do public participation for the sake of public participation. So you're going to see a lot of departure from the past, including now allowing submission of memoranda by email, not just the submission, but making sure that those memoranda are actually read and considered in the report. After that, and you saw my colleague, the chairperson for Budget and Appropriations Committee, add the discussion, because after now the start of the public participation, that is really the baby of the Budget and the Budget and Appropriations Committee, because the Constitution of Kenya gives the National Assembly of Kenya the sole mandate of budget making. So we are a budget making house. So the Committee on Budget and Budget and Appropriations now will spearhead the collection of views from Kenyans from across different sectors on in terms of the public participation in the budget, and after which now it will be tabled at the National Assembly for discussion in the respective committees. And key to note now, you'll see now the role of my Committee of Finance and National Planning. Now, once we agree on what the budget is be, then we're going to see us now start public participation on the finance bill.
So this is not just the first one, there will be some others after the committee has sat down?
Yes, there will be, because this is the cake, this is the expenditure side. We still need to look at the revenue side, because what you saw today is a launch of the expenditure side. How much are we spending as a country? What are we spending on what? And what do the Kenyans want us to spend the money on? But where is the money? So after this, now you'll see now the launch of the public sector hearing, public participation on the finance bill. Now, which now we'll be looking at the ways, the revenue raising measures to finance that particular budget.
And it's a new government, and we currently are on a budget that was passed by the previous regimes. Are we expecting a paradigm shift in regards to how the process will be this time around?
Yes, you expect a lot to change. This government is very keen on following what you call a zero-based budget, where we are sort of now coming up with the budget from scratch. Unlike previously, where the budget was based on the ceiling. Of what was done by, for example, what a State Department was appropriated the previous year, then automatically they would start off with that ceiling. And so there's a paradigm shift of that in terms of now this time around, whether the State Department now will have to come up the budget from scratch and say, why do you need, for example, 5 billion shillings? And if you remember, one of the first decisions, or one of the first directions that the president gave on being inaugurated as the president was to cut down spending by State Department by around 300 billion shillings. And so you're going to see a lot of that. The president said there are going to be austerity measures. We cannot just be spending money on travel. There has to be a reason why we're traveling. So you're going to see a lot of paradigm shift in terms of where the resources are being put on, so that resources are just being put on areas that have direct impact, that are concerned to Kenyans, and that will have a ripple effect in terms of review of our economy, because there are several sectors that need to be revamped. And so this time around it's not a focus on contracting and who should get what contract. It's about services to the people. It's about getting sure that we fund the core services of government, and we prevent wastage. All the money that was being wasted, whether what was international travel, on domestic travel, and not just travel, on many other areas. Then you're going to see a departure from that. And if then a State Department or a parastatal or a government official will have to spend those particular monies put in the budget, then they'll have to explain, why that particular budget line of that particular vote head is needed in the current budget.
Indeed, and thank you so much for that detailed explanation. I'm quite sure a lot of Kenyans want to see how this budget is going to be, bearing in mind we are post-COVID and now we have a new government and the high cost of living. Thank you so much for that. Daniel, looking at what the president did a day ago, is that he reorganized some of the government dockets in an aim of ensuring that service delivery is actualized. And the Kenya Kwanza a plan or agenda, so to speak. It has been met with mixed reactions. Some are interpreting it up to 2027, looking at the CS Musalia Mudavadi, is like more or less he has had some more oomph, some more kick in his office, some more strength. I would like to pick your mind on that, being an expert in governance.
Thank you. I think it depends on how you look at from. Some people may think it will be the same up to 2027, but it may not be, because governments keep on reviewing. They review what they have proposed and what they have implemented. If it works well, there shall be no need to change. But if for the interest, because you have to balance between politics, balance for your next election, balance on service delivery. So if the service delivery of the Kenya Kwanza will be attained by this team that the government has reorganized, the president has reorganized, then it will be kept up to 2027. But if there shall be need to change, and in my own understanding, there is always watching every government for 2.5 years. So if 2.5 years, they will pass what always happens, where we have people getting low esteem, people feeling that their egos have not been massaged enough, people forming political formations. If that doesn't happen, meet up, then there'll be no need to change.
And we'll be touching on that a little bit later, but let me pick on Wambui Shadrach.
Yes.
Looking at what yesterday the head of state in Kiganjo, he did promise a lot of goodies for the police sector. There's one thing that came out quite clearly. He talked about there's no way ever that the criminal justice system is going to be used again for political interests. But looking at what is we are reading even in the papers and also on social media, is that a lot of Kenyans are questioning the dalliance between the judiciary and the executive. Case in point, a lot of cases have been dropped of people believed to be cronies of the president, or people who have quite aligned themselves with the Kenya Kwanza. We have seen a lot of cases being dropped, including of sitting CSs, and that has not quite sat well with a lot of Kenyans. From where you sit and being an officer of the court, what do you make of what the president said vis-a-vis what we are seeing from the other side of the judiciary?
Thank you, Troy, and Happy New Year to our viewers. Now, first, let us begin from the understanding that the very design of the law is that the law is made in a very perfect way. Mheshimiwa will tell you that the intention really are to implement what the law says, the letter and the spirit. But sometimes there is always some point of divergence, because you see, this law, as it is made to be perfect, it is actually implemented by people who are imperfect, so that the final outcome of what becomes the law as in practice becomes now an imperfect way of doing things. So the Constitution has designed a separation of powers. It has intimated that we will have a legislature that will be independent from the executive and the judiciary that will be independent from that. But even as the proponents of this principle or the doctrine of separation of powers propounded this theory, they knew too well that for the government to work effectively, there needs to be some committee, there needs to be some cooperation, level of cooperation. That is why you will expect at even from this reading of the budget, it is now the executive coming up with some proposal, then it will be floated to the legislature, then there shall be also some input from the judiciary. So really, even while we anticipate that there will be some separation of powers, it cannot be really the case for a well-functioning system or democratic state. Now, when it comes to these few instances where we have seen, of course, I know too well, I've been participating in a number of cases that some have been dropped. I know too well, of course, and I will speak with some bias. I have been one of the lawyers representing the CS, Honorable Aisha Jumo, and I know her cases were dropped. And from the very outset, we had even said that there was some malice in the framing of these charges, and even the very design or the thought of coming up with these charges. And we explained ourselves. Remember that even while the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is designed to be an independent office, it also has some review powers or some mandate within itself to correct itself. We must also live to appreciate ourselves as a country that should be borrowing a little from what happens in this in the United States of America. The United States of America is known as a country where it is self-correcting. So that if you establish that there was an error or a mistake in a certain decision that you made, there is no shame in correcting it. But probably what some manifesto writers will be saying out there is what really is the intention. The timing might be the problem, but really let us not lose sight of why they are being withdrawn, why some cases are being withdrawn, why these cases were even begun in the first place. Were they begun in the first place so that they could steer a certain political narrative, so that they could punish some dissidents in some certain political divides? Because that is what we read from the script that I have been reading, especially
but Council, looking at a very practical example of the case against the DP Rigathi Gachagua, is that the court itself had made that decision. But hold the thought, because we have to cross over to Embakasi, the Administration Police Training College, as you can see. That is the head of state there, who has just arrived. The exercise will be beginning any time from now. That's the head of state. Let's first of all cross over and hear the sights and sounds.
Na kwa sasa Mheshimiwa Rais anaelekezwa kwa ukaguzi wa gwaride. Tafadhali sote tunaweza keti.
Wageni wetu, inachoendelea sasa ni ukaguzi wa gwaride, ambapo Mheshimiwa Rais ataelekezwa ili kuweza kukagua gwaride hilo. Hii ni minajili kwamba ni sheria, na mgeni wa heshima anapofika kuweza kukagua gwaride na kisha aweze na uhakika kwamba mahafala hawa sasa wako tayari kwenda kuhudumia wananchi.
Mheshimiwa Rais anaelekezwa na parade orderlies Sergeant Julius Mutai, naye Sergeant Bernard Omweri, vile vile akienda unyo kwa unyo na parade commander Superintendent of Police Bwana Vincent Rotich, bila kumsahau naibu wa Inspector Generali tawi la polisi tawala Bwana Nur Gabo, naye kamanda wa chuo hiki Bwana James Kamau. Kumbuka, shughuli ya ukaguzi wa gwaride ni muhimu kwa sababu inahakikisha afisa wote wako imara na tayari kwa kazi vile vile silaha zao ziko tayari kwa kazi. Ni shughuli ya ukaguzi wa gwaride inaendelea, shughuli ambayo ni muhimu sana kabla na baada ya maafisa kufanya kazi yeyote, kwa sababu inahakikisha maafisa wako tayari kufanya kazi ambayo iko mbele yao, vile vile na silaha zao ziko tayari. Shughuli ambayo ni kama amri ama tamaduni kwa kila afisa kabla na baada ya kwenda kazini. Tunashukuru tena sana kwa sababu ya Mheshimiwa Rais kuweza kufika katika sherehe hii ya 58 tangu kuanzishwa kwa kikosi chetu cha polisi tawala, kikosi ambacho kilianzishwa nchini mnamo mwaka 1902. Naam, ndio mwisho wa ukaguzi wa gwaride, na sasa Mheshimiwa Rais ameweza kumkabidhi parade commander gwaride ili aweze kuendelea na kipindi kifuatacho.
Mheshimiwa Rais, watakaojongea mbele sasa ni pamoja na wanafunzi na walimu ambao waliweza kufanya bora wakati walipokuwa kwenye zoezi hili la mafunzo. Hiyo basi, Mheshimiwa Rais, wataenda kupata fursa kutuzwa nawe.
Wanaelekezwa kwa maridadi na parade RSM.
The best all-round recruit, course number 1, stroke 2022, service number 265965, AP recruit Stephen Chilango of N Company.
Ni afisa ambaye aliweza kuwabwaga wenzake katika masuala ya viwanjani vile na darasani, yani ukipenda practicals and theories. Makofi kwake jameni.
Hivyo basi anatuzwa fimbo ya heshima ambayo hii huwa sana inabebwa na walioweza kushinda kama yeye, na vile service number 265082 AP recruit Agnes Muridhi of D Company.
Ni mwanadada ambaye pia aliweza kuwabwaga wenzake vile katika masomo ya viwanjani na masomo ya darasani, yani practicals and theories. Tumpe makofi jameni.
Hivyo basi pia naye atapokezwa fimbo kama hiyo ya heshima siku ya leo na Mheshimiwa Rais. Itakuwa ni ya kumbukumbu. Best recruits in academics, service number 266551, AP recruit Emmanuel Kiplimo of V Company.
Mheshimiwa Rais, afisa huyu mtarajiwa aliweza kufanya bora sana katika masomo ya darasani, hasa katika lile somo la sheria, yani alitafuna katiba na kuimwaga yote wakati wa mtihani na kujinyakulia alama 49 kwa 50. Jameni, makofi kwake.
Anapokezwa ngao ya ushindi. Best shot, service number 264941, AP recruit Mary Menganyi of C Company.
Huyu ni mwanadada Mheshimiwa Rais ambaye alikuwa mlenga shabaha hodari. Aliweza kuwabwaga wenzake wote wakati wa masomo, hasa katika ulengaji shabaha wa kutumia silaha mbalimbali. Ni mwanadada ukimpa maafisa 50 umwambie akutolee mmoja katikati yao, ataweza kumtoa. Tumpe makofi jameni.
Amewezwa kuvesha nembo yenye alama ya bunduki kwenye mkono wa kulia, vile anapokezwa ngao ya ushindi huo. Major trophies, best company in fieldcraft and tactics, K Company.
Hicho ni kikundi ambacho kiliweza kubuni sana mbinu za kupambana na magaidi wakati wa masomo yao, na wakaweza kubuni mbinu ambazo zitatumika na maafisa wetu katika vitengo tofauti kuhakikisha taifa letu liko imara na salama. Tuwape makofi tafadhali.
Hivyo basi mwalimu wao anapokea kikombe kwa niaba ya K Company. Best company in sports and games, F Company.
Mbali na masomo ya darasani na viwanjani, maafisa wetu huwa wanafanya michezo tofauti tofauti, ikiwemo michezo ya riadha, karate na hata mbio mbalimbali. Kikundi hiki cha F Company kiliweza kujinyakulia zawadi hii.
Hivyo basi mwalimu wao ameweza kupokea tuzo hiyo kwa niaba ya K Company. Mheshimiwa Rais, asante sana. Ningeomba sasa uweze kuchukua nafasi yako kwenye jukwaa kuu ili tuingie kipindi kinachofuata, kipindi cha gwaride. Karibu Mheshimiwa Rais. Asanteni sana. Kwa niaba Mheshimiwa Rais, naomba ruhusa yako niweze kuwakalisha wageni wetu. Tafadhali tuketi.
Nam, ndio mwanzo wa gwaride letu, gwaride la kipekee, gwaride ambalo hamtalipata kwingineko ila tu katika chuo hiki cha polisi tawala. Ni gwaride la kufana lililoandaliwa kwa njia ya kipekee, na gwaride ambalo linatupa kitambulisho ambacho hakiwezi katu kuvutika. Ni gwaride la 58 tangu kuanzishwa kwa kikosi chetu cha polisi tawala. Karibu tena sana Mheshimiwa Rais, uweze kuburudika na yale ambayo maafisa wetu watarajiwa wameweza kukuandalia tayari kukupakulia. Karibu sana sana. wakiongozwa na wanabendi wetu chini ya kamanda ambaye ni Superintendent of Police, Senior Superintendent of Police Bwana Ernest Otieno, pale kwa umaridadi wakiongozwa na drum major ambao wanaendelea kurembesha gwaride hili kwa muziki ya kufinyanga zana mbalimbali za muziki na kuhakikisha yote yako namna tulivyoyapangia kwa sababu ya harusi hii. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Rais kwa kupokea gwaride hili linapopita kwa heshima mbele yako chini ya uelekezi bora wa Parade Commander Senior Superintendent of Police Bwana Vincent Rotich. Nyuma yake kwa madaha si mwingine bali ni naibu wake Superintendent of Police Bwana Abraham Kemboi. Vile vile nyuma yake ni Parade RSM Bwana Jekonia Ajuga. Kundi la kwanza likiwa limekata kichwa kulia kwa kuonyesha ama kwa kuashiria heshima Mheshimiwa Rais, liko chini ya mikono bora ya Chief Inspector Daniel Chacha, Platoon Sergeant akiwa ni Senior Sergeant Mohamed Alake. Karibu tena sana Mheshimiwa Rais uweze kuburudika na gwaride hili la kipekee, gwaride la kufuzu kwa 58 kwa maafisa hawa ambao wameweza kutamatisha masomo yao ya takriban miezi 9. Vikundi mbalimbali Mheshimiwa Rais viko chini ya platoon commanders ambao pia ni wasimamizi wa vitivo tofauti tofauti katika kikosi hiki, wakielekezwa kwa umaridadi. Ni ishara ya namna watakavyosimamiwa kule mashinani watakapokuwa wakipokeza huduma ya usalama wakiwa chini ya waelekezi na wasimamizi wao. Vile vile kuna platoon sergeants ambao wanasaidia platoon commanders katika masuala hayo. Kila hatua katika gwaride letu Mheshimiwa Rais ina maana yake. Kwa sasa wako katika mwendo wa kinyonga, mwendo ambao unaashiria namna wakati tukio linapotokea huwa tunachukua hatua ya utaratibu ili kuhakikisha tunapata jawabu lote la kila swala kabla ya kuchukua hatua inayofaa kupeana suluhu. kuabudiwa ukiwa chini ya bendi yetu ambao wanaelekeza umaridadi wa matembezi ya wanagwaride hili. Mheshimiwa Rais, ni wanabendi ambao wanaelekezwa pale na Senior Drum Major, Senior Sergeant John Mutunga, bila kumsahau Kopro Alex Mutuku, vile vile naye Kopro Caroline Kagwira. Ndio umaridadi wa kipekee wa gwaride letu. Mheshimiwa Rais, wanapotembea kwa pamoja inaashiria namna watakavyoshikana hata na vikosi vingine na vitengo tofauti tofauti pale nje, kuhakikisha usalama unakita kila pembe ya taifa letu, ili kuhakikisha kila mmoja anaendelea kuogelea katika hali iliyo salama masaa 24. Ni furaha iliyoje Mheshimiwa Rais. Maafisa hawa watarajiwa ambao kwa masaa machache kuanzia sasa hivi wataweza kula kiapo na kuwa maafisa kamili, wamepata nafasi ya kukuona kwa karibu tena sana. Jamani, ni furaha isiyo na kifani, kwani ni siku ambayo tutaishi tukikumbukia kama wanapolisi tawala katika chuo hiki, chuo cha kipekee cha polisi tawala. Ndio utamu wa kipekee, utamu ambao katu hautaupata mahali kwingineko ila tu kwa wanapolisi tawala chini ya huduma ya polisi nchini, wakitembea kwa madaha ya kufurahi harusi hii. Harusi ni ya 58 tangu kuzaliwa kwa kikosi chetu kwa sasa wakiwa katika mwendo wa kinyonga ama ukipenda slow march. Wimbo harusi tunayo, jameni, ni kweli harusi tuko nayo, na ni 58 tangu kuzaliwa kwa kikosi hiki kilicho chini ya huduma ya polisi nchini. Mheshimiwa Rais wanapotembea hivi bila kupoteza hatua, inaashiria namna walivyodaka masomo bila kupoteza lolote ambalo waliweza kulipokezwa humu chuoni chini ya uelekezi bora wa kamanda mkuu wa chuo hiki AIG Bwana James Kamau. Ni hatua ambayo inaashiria namna maafisa hawa waliweza kupewa mafunzo yao wanayoyafanya hii leo, ikiwemo ni moja ya yale ambayo waliweza kuyafunzwa, yani somo la kwata, ukipenda kwa lugha ya Kimombo somo la drill, ambalo linawasaidia kujikimu na kiwango cha haja katika nidhamu yao. Ni somo ambalo linawasaidia tena sana katika masuala ya kuwa na nidhamu ya kiwango cha haja.
Na Mheshimiwa Rais, baada ya gwaride kupita kwa mwendo wa aste aste, ni zamu sasa ya pili ya gwaride hili kupita tena mbele ya jukwaa yako kwa mwendo wa haraka haraka. Haya yote ni mafunzo ambayo wameweza kupitia kwenye chuo hiki, wakifunzwa kutembea kwa mwendo wa aste aste, vile vile mwendo wa haraka haraka. Karibu Mheshimiwa Rais. Niombe Mheshimiwa Rais sasa uweze kujiongea mbele kwa heshima na taadhima, uweze kupokea heshima hizo. Ili kuweza kuhakikisha hatua zilizoko ndani ya gwaride zinafuatwa moja baada ya nyingine, Mheshimiwa Rais, zikiongozwa na bendi yetu, ni wimbo Tushangilie Kenya. kupokea heshima hizo. Bado ndani ya kiwanja gwaride likirudi kunazidi kuendelea na mifumo kadha wa kadha. Hii yote ni kwa minajili ya kuweza kufanikisha siku hii ya leo. Mheshimiwa Rais,
gwaride letu, gwaride la kipekee, gwaride la 58 Mheshimiwa Rais. Utamu ulioje ambao ni kitambulisho cha kipekee katika kikosi chetu. Umaridadi ukiendelea kule katikati ya uga Mheshimiwa Rais, wa miundo tofauti tofauti.
Wakiondoka uwanjani bendi ili kuweza kupisha gwaride liendelee. Mheshimiwa Rais, utakuwa na mifumo kadha wa kadha pamoja naye ndani ya gwaride.
Sasa Mheshimiwa Rais, miundo tofauti tofauti inaendelea ugani ili kutengeneza umaridadi wa gwaride hili. Ndio utamu wa kipekee wa gwaride letu la polisi tawala katika sherehe kama hizi Mheshimiwa Rais. Kwa sasa wanajipanga kutengeneza muundo spesheli wa kusherehekea sikukuu hii ya leo, sikukuu ya kipekee ya harusi hii Mheshimiwa Rais. Kakakatana, sijui ni nini wametupangia hawa jameni, hebu tueleze.
Mheshimiwa Rais, upande wa kushoto jinsi ulivyoketi wameunda AP, upande wa kulia jinsi ulivyoketi wameunda 5-8, yani wanasherehekea miaka 58 kwenye kikosi cha tawala kufuzu siku ya leo. Mheshimiwa Rais,
wapi makofi jameni kwa maafisa wetu kwa kutayarisha muundo huo wa AP58, yani kuashiria sherehe ya 58 tangu kuzaliwa kwa kikosi chetu. Shukran za dhati Mheshimiwa Rais. Ndio utamu wa kipekee unaotupa kitambulisho ambacho kamwe hakiwezi kikavutika.
Basi baada ya burudani hilo na pia kuweza kutamatisha kwa miaka 58 Mheshimiwa Rais, tukiweza kuendelea sasa, gwaride limeweza kurudi tisti na tuko karibu kumalizia gwaride hili. Niombe sote tuweze kusimama Mheshimiwa Rais kwa review order na wimbo wa taifa.
We'll advance in review order. Center, quick, right.
oath of office. I do solemnly and sincerely affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Constitution and the President of Kenya during my service in the Administration Police Service, without favor or affection, malice or ill will, that I will at all times do my utmost to preserve peace and prevent offenses against the peace, that while I shall continue to hold the said office to the best of my skills and knowledge, discharge all the duties thereof, faithfully according to law. I will subject myself to the Constitution, all acts, orders and regulations, now or in future, in the service, relating to my service, in the Administration Police Service, and that I will discharge all the duties of a police officer according to law, without fear, favor, affection or ill will. So help me God.
Your Excellency, the parade is ready for action. And I have your permission to stand at this parade, sir.
Your Excellency, Honorable Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, the Deputy President, Your Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, the Governor, Nairobi, Johnston Sakaja, all local and national leaders present, the Inspector General and his deputies, graduates, instructors, parents, ladies and gentlemen. With your permission, Your Excellency, allow me to now invite the Deputy Inspector General of Administration Police to give his remarks. Welcome, sir.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and the Commander of our Defense Forces, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Your Excellency, the Governor of Nairobi, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration, the Inspector General, Principal Secretaries who are present, National Assembly members who are present, invited guests. Your Excellency, on my behalf and that of the Administration Police Service, we are so delighted this morning to receive you here for the 58th graduation ceremony for the 1,995 officers. Your Excellency, we want to report that since these officers have reported on 1st of April, they have undergone various courses and training here and also at Kidong in Naivasha. Your Excellency, these officers will join men and women who have made a difference in our border security, in our anti-theft prevention unit, in our rapid response unit, and also our critical infrastructure protection unit. Your Excellency, I know you were here in this ground in 1999, and also this is a place where we train officers of the National Administration. Your Excellency, we shall also subject these officers for other various training on the specialized training after they have gone for their break for leave, and once they return back, they will undergo in order that they will be able to protect the policing of this country. At this juncture, Your Excellency, may I call upon the Inspector General to continue with the rest of the program. The Inspector General, sir.
His Excellency, Dr. Honorable William Samoei Ruto, CGH, the President of our beautiful country, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, sir, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and National Administration, Professor Kithure Kindiki, Governor wa jiji letu la Nairobi, permanent secretaries with us today, honorable members of parliament with us, chairman of the National Police Service Commission, senior government officials present this morning, fellow police officers, representative of the CDF, wananchi waheshimiwa, graduates, Mheshimiwa Rais, nitaanza na kushukuru wewe sana kwa niaba ya National Police Service kwa kupata nafasi kuwa na sisi leo. Ni jana tu ulikuwa na sisi Nyeri, Kiganjo, where we had a similar event, graduation of 2,881 police officers. This morning, again, as the DIG APS stated, we have no additional members of the National Police Service here, 1,985. Mheshimiwa Rais, once more kwa niaba ya National Police Service na kushukuru sana kwa kupata hiyo nafasi. We cannot take that for granted. We know you have a busy schedule, lakini umekubali tena leo kuwa na sisi. Mheshimiwa Rais, Jumapili nilishinda na hawa maofficers hapa. Tulizungumza mambo mengi na nikawaeleza yale kila wakati unatueleza kama service commanders that you have a responsibility to serve every Kenyan equally, bila kuangalia yeye ni tajiri, ni mtu mdogo, ametoka kabila ipi. We serve all citizens of this country and many foreign visitors we have in our country with honesty, without fear or favor. Hayo ni mambo merudia kila wakati, na nilieleza hao maofisa ambao wataenda kwa kona zote za nchi yetu ambaye nimesema ni nzuri. Tumewakumbusha kila wakati wahudumie wa Kenya na wageni wengi with the dignity, of course observing human rights and the fundamental of freedoms. Mheshimiwa Rais, sitazungumza zaidi. Utaniruhusu sasa nimwalike Waziri Professor Kithure Kindiki sir. Please, you're welcome. Carry on with the rest of the program. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Mheshimiwa William Ruto, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya na Amiri Jeshi wa vikosi vya ulinzi, Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua, Naibu wa Rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, makatibu wa wizara ambao wako hapa, Inspector Generali wa polisi na manaibu wako, mstahiki gavana wa kaunti ya Nairobi, Mheshimiwa Johnson Sakaja, mwenyekiti wa tume huru ya masuala ya polisi, maofisa wakuu wote walio hapa wa serikali, makamanda wa vikosi mbalimbali katika idara yetu ya polisi na vikosi vingine vya usalama, mahafala wa leo, wazazi, marafiki. Mheshimiwa Rais, yangu ni machache. Kwanza, kuwapongeza maofisa wetu ambao wamehitimu, ambao kwa miezi 9 iliyopita wamekuwa katika mafunzo haya. Nachukua nafasi hii kuwapongeza na kuwatakia kila laheri katika kazi zao za kulinda usalama wa nchi yetu. Mheshimiwa Rais, kwa ruhusa yako vile vile ningetaka kusema sisi kama Wizara ya Usalama wa Ndani na Utawala wa Nchi tunaendelea kutekeleza agenda ambayo serikali ambayo umeongoza imeahidi watu wa Kenya. Katika idara hii ya usalama, Mheshimiwa Rais, umeendelea kutuongoza na kutuelekeza, na umetuambia jinsi unavyotaka kuona vikosi vyetu vya usalama wa nchi vikifanya kazi kulinda maisha na mali ya mwananchi, kutopendelea upande wowote, kutojiingiza katika siasa na kuwa waaminifu kwa katiba ya nchi yetu na sheria za nchi, na kutii amri zote ambazo ni halali, na vile vile kutotii amri ambazo ni kinyume na sheria na kinyume na katiba. Mheshimiwa Rais, kama waziri wako pamoja na wenzangu wote ambao umetupatia nafasi kuhudumia Wakenya katika wizara hii, tunajitahidi kutekeleza maagizo yako na ruwaza yako ya usalama wa nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo siku ya leo, Mheshimiwa Rais, ni kukuambia tu asante kwa kutafuta nafasi kuwa na sisi. Jana vile vile ulikuwa na sisi kule Kiwanjo, na vile vile utakuwa na sisi siku ya kesho. We feel privileged as a ministry. We thank you for finding time to come and be with us and preside over this ceremony. We commit ourselves to implement all the directives you have given to make sure that our security sector is free from engagement in political activities, to protect lives and property, to honor the constitution of our country and the laws of our country, and to refrain from taking unlawful instructions. Your Excellency, sir, today is not my day to make speeches. Today is my day just to thank you and welcome you here. And before you address us, Your Excellency, allow me to invite the Deputy President, the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, to say jambo and to invite you on our behalf.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, our Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration, the Inspector General of Police, all senior officers in the National Police Service, Your Excellency, I am privileged today to accompany you for this passing out parade. And for me, Your Excellency, my presence here to accompany you is a nostalgic one. Your Excellency, 32 years ago, I was on this very parade ground in another colorful passing out parade for administrative officers and administration police officers. Your Excellency, I want to confirm to you that during our time here, the training was professional and rigorous, and from my observation, I think the standards have even gone higher. Your Excellency, from my earlier life, before I joined you into the political world, I have observed from my experience, na nimeangalia hii parade iko sawa, iko safi na imeiva zaidi. And Your Excellency, as I sat there and I watched you inspect the passing out parade in quick time with energy and vigor, I forgot temporarily and went back to the political world. And I was just wondering, as I saw your step in quick time, the energy, the vigor, and my mind was just wondering what would have been the future of our parades for the military and discipline forces if things had gone the other way. That is a story for another day. Mheshimiwa Rais, these officers have taken their oath and have sworn to be loyal to their president and to the Constitution. The President of the Republic of Kenya has pronounced himself not once, not twice, that he wants our security officers to perform their duties, to protect life and property, to maintain law and order, and to arrest offenders and charge them. And he does not want them to help him in managing politics. So the oath you have taken to be faithful to your president, it then behoves you to live to that oath and do what you have been trained to do. In terms of politics, Rais ako na jeshi yake ya siasa ambaye mimi ndiye kamanda ya hiyo jeshi, na kwa wakati huu hatuhitaji nyinyi kwa hiyo jeshi. Nyinyi ni jeshi ya IG, mfanye kazi ya kulinda Wakenya na maisha yao. Na sisi wale ambaye tulitaka kwenda siasa, we hanged our boots, we returned our uniform and went to politics. That political place is a difficult place. Please just stay where you are. You have a good job. Now those of you who may want to join us in politics, ile ofisi ya quartermaster iko pale kwa gate, unarudisha uniform, unakuja kwa jeshi yangu ya siasa, tunaendelea pamoja. Otherwise, you have got a good job, and Your Excellency, this is a good team, and we have professional officers, and ours is to support them so that they live up to their oath and serve the people of Kenya with dedication. Na kwa hayo mengi, ningetaka kuchukua nafasi hii kwa unyenyekevu na heshima kumwalika Rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya ahutuhutubie. Mheshimiwa Rais.
Thank you very much. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Deputy President. Tafadhali tuketi chini, please. The Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration and your PS, the Governor of the great city of Nairobi, the Inspector General of Police and our two Deputy Inspector Generals, senior police officers, the Commandant of this college, family and friends of graduates, and the graduates standing before me. Good afternoon. This is an auspicious day for many people in Kenya. It is memorable for the families and for you graduates who have successfully completed this recruit course. It is also a historic day for Kenya's policing institution and good news for the people of Kenya, whose legitimate demand for better security, more effective and professional, dynamic and modern police services are being answered by your passing out this afternoon. It is also a day of tremendous assurance for the government of Kenya, which recognizes that our rights, freedoms, lives, livelihoods, belongings, and all hope of prosperity are literally in the hands of the policemen and women who continue to bravely take selfless stand and keep the people safe and secure. I therefore join the families and the college community in celebrating the cohort which has successfully completed the course, thereby embarking on a life and career dedicated to the high calling of policing our nation. You have satisfied the college staff and instructors that you are fit to serve in your next assignment and are ready to serve your nation and its people with distinction, honor, and patriotism. You have also demonstrated to the satisfaction of the commandant and the course instructors, as well as the staff of this college, that you have acquired the skills and discipline required to play your role in injecting fresh and modern approaches to the practice of the novel profession of policing. We do not take this milestone for granted, and on behalf of the government and the people of Kenya, I congratulate you on your selfless and fine achievement. I urge you to always take the spirit of flawless coordination, which enables you to display unity of command, discipline, and harmony in executing today's spectacular parade. Your performance on the field before us is symbolic of your promise of excellence in professional service delivery in order to meet the high expectations of citizens that their rights, freedoms, and interests are at all times in safe hands. You go forth to serve in an increasingly complex and dynamic security environment, with diverse novel threats emerging on a continuous basis to compound ordinary crime and chronic security challenges. It is our legitimate expectation that you are ready to face the challenges head on in a skillful, efficient, and effective manner, thereby safeguarding the necessary environment for Kenyans to pursue their aspirations and achieve shared prosperity as a nation. I urge you to be ever mindful of your immense responsibility to dedicate all your service to the observance of your oath of allegiance, your standing orders, the Constitution, and all the laws of the land. Furthermore, I remind you of the government's commitment to realize a new policing paradigm underpinned by a citizen-centered, service-oriented approach to the provision of security and maintenance of law and order. This paradigm also respects and upholds integrity, fundamental human rights, and constitutional freedoms, human dignity, and our determination as a nation to pursue sustainable development as an open and democratic society. As pertains to the Constitution, therefore, I particularly call on you to be mindful of the national values and principles of governance to serve as your professional anchor. The need for modernization arises from the constantly evolving complexity of contemporary security challenges. Technology and globalization has enabled antisocial characters and criminal networks to threaten society in more dangerous ways over a vast international range. It is important for every police professional to rise to this challenge by acquiring insights to empower them in understanding complicated and sophisticated criminal and security threats, and skills that enable them work effectively with modern technology and modern equipment. We are determined to deliver security in all parts of Kenya without sacrificing fundamental rights and freedoms. A more autonomous, professional, and better resourced police service whose members enjoy conducive terms of employment and conditions of service and have access to adequate welfare amenities will go a long way in facilitating this commitment that we have as a nation. We have liberated the police service from political and bureaucratic control by relocating the police budget from the Office of the President to the Office of the Inspector General. Without autonomy, the police service is vulnerable to weaponization, making it a threat instead of an asset to challenges in our security and law and order sectors. We have also sustained the commitment to escalate the police to citizen ratio by recruiting and training more policemen and women on a continuous basis to ensure that Kenyans have access to responsive and effective police protection throughout the country. Furthermore, we have increased our investment in the provision of infrastructure, equipment, and technology for the police to improve their capacity to combat crime and protect Kenyans and their property. This includes the establishment of an ultra-modern forensic laboratory to enable our investigators solve complex crimes and keep bad elements off through effective prosecution. Additionally, we have enhanced coordination between various agencies in resolving crime and security threats, while at the same time deepening the collaboration between the police services and communities. For this reason, it is important for every police officer, including you standing here before me today, to be mindful of the need to maintain relations of mutual respect with members of the public as a matter of necessity. This is because citizens are your employers. Citizens' rights and freedoms are constitutionally protected, and also because cordial relations with the public enhances police capacity to keep citizens, their communities, and their properties safe. As regards the terms of employment, conditions of service and welfare of police officers, the government of Kenya has undertaken a number of measures. I recently, for example, appointed a task force to review the conditions of service for the police and prison officers, whose report and recommendations shall chart a clear and actionable path to significant improvement of the terms of service and employment of our policemen and women and prison officers. Also, the provider of comprehensive health insurance cover has been competitively contracted to ensure that all police officers and their families have access to high-quality medical services, including mental health and psychosocial support. Finally, we have identified police officers as priority beneficiaries of the affordable housing projects in order to ensure that members of the service lead dignified lives in clean, spacious, safe, and secure houses and neighborhoods. Kenyans are committed to meet their part of the bargain by ensuring that their government facilitates members of the police service to be ready and capable of protecting them. For this reason, I urge the graduates as well as members of the service assembled here to reflect on their part of this contract and commit to do their utmost in delivering on it. Kenya's neighborhood of the Horn of Africa continues to face various security challenges. War, armed conflict, and civil strife has led to the collapse of law and order in various parts of our region. The cross-border spillover of this crisis has saddled our security sector with a burden of illicit firearms among civilian populations, sustaining banditry, cattle rustling, and other threats to life, property, peace, and security. Kenya continues to seize every opportunity to restore peace and stability in affected countries and regions through peacekeeping deployments and robust diplomatic efforts. We shall not relent in this quest until our brothers and sisters in the Horn of Africa as well as East Africa enjoy peace, stability, and prosperity. The time has come for us to decisively engage so as to eradicate banditry and cattle rustling within our borders. I am confident that our police services now have what it takes to execute this critical assignment, and I have given firm instructions to the ministry to support all our men in uniform to ensure that we eradicate banditry and cattle rustling. And I want to say without equivocation that this is the administration that will get rid of the menace that has been a challenge to Kenya for many years. As I conclude, I reiterate the high expectation that Kenyans have in you. You should have no difficulty whatsoever in meeting them by serving them with discipline, dignity, courage, firmness, but also fairness. After your graduation today, you will join your colleagues in the high calling to serve all Kenyans in keeping with the police service motto, utumishi kwa wote. Na ningependa kuchukua nafasi hii vilevile kuwapongeza, kuwashukuru na kuwauliza wakati mnaondoka hapa siku ya leo ni watume na mambo mawili. Ya kwanza ni watume na salamu nyingi kutoka kwangu kwa familia zenu, wazazi wenu, jamaa zenu na mahali kote mnatoka katika taifa letu la Kenya. Tafadhali mnibebee salamu zangu kwa mahali popote mnatoka katika taifa letu la Kenya. Jambo la pili, nawauliza, kwa sababu mtakuwa na muda wa karibu mwezi moja nyumbani, naomba kila mmoja wenu tusaidiane kama taifa. Kila mmoja wenu apande miti kule nyumbani, at least miti 30 kila mmoja wenu, na pia mupashe hiyo habari kwa ndugu zenu ambao walifanya pass out kesho, na wale nitawafanyia pass out wale walifanya pass out jana, na wale nitawafanyia pass out kesho. Na vile vile katika jambo hilo hilo la mambo ya mazingira, tunajua tuko na changamoto kubwa ya mambo ya mazingira katika taifa letu la Kenya na duniani kote. Nimeuliza komanda wetu ama commandant wa hii campus pamoja na ile ya kule kwa GSU na wale watu wote ambao wanafanya katika sekta ya security katika mji wetu wa Nairobi, kwamba hiyo sekta yote, na wauliza mtupandie miti milioni 10 hapa Nairobi, kwa sababu nyinyi mnakaa hapa Nairobi. Kwa hivyo bwana commandant, wale vijana watakuja hapa baada ya hawa kuondoka, wakuje na kuanza kupanda miti katika college hii. College hii iko na miti chache, Eastlands iko na miti chache. Nauliza wanajeshi, askari wetu wa polisi, askari wetu wa prison wanaoishi hapa Nairobi, watusaidie kupanda miti milioni 10 hapa Nairobi, wakiungana na county yetu ya Nairobi chini ya governor wetu Mheshimiwa Sakaja. Nimemuuliza ya kwamba washirikiane na wizara yetu ya mambo ya mazingira, vile vile na Kenya Forest Service. Mutapatiwa seedlings ama miche ya miti, ndio mtusaidie kupanda miti hasa katika sehemu hii mnayoishi ya Eastlands. Naamini ya kwamba tumekubaliana tutaenda hivyo, na nataka kusema jambo langu la mwisho kwenu. Paulo katika Biblia alimwambia Timotheo katika Timotheo 1 ama Timotheo ya kwanza 1 mstari wa 12 ya kwamba usikubali mtu adharau ujana wako. Na waambia askari wetu, sote tumekubaliana kazi ni kazi. Ile mimi nafanya kama rais, ile wewe utaenda kufanya kama askari, ile inafanyika pale na fundi akitumia nyundo ama akitumia randa, ile inafanywa pale ofisini na yule anatumia kompyuta, yule anafanya pale katika kiwanda akitumia jerahani. Hiyo yote ni kazi na ni majukumu ambayo kila mmoja wetu inafaa tutekeleze kwa uzalendo, tukijua ya kwamba ni mchango wetu katika kutengeneza Kenya yenye itatufaa sisi wote. Na nawauliza ya kwamba msikubali, na mimi kama kiongozi wa taifa sitaruhusu mtu yeyote kudharau kazi ya mwenzake. Sote tunachangia katika kutengeneza Kenya moja, na hakuna mmoja wetu asiyekuwa na umuhimu. Kila mmoja wetu wako na mchango wake, kila mmoja wetu wako na sehemu yake ya kufanya kazi, na usipofanya ile kazi unafanya, Kenya itakuwa inarudi nyuma. Na waomba kwa unyenyekevu ya kwamba sote tuungane na kila mmoja wetu afanye sehemu ambaye ako naye ya kazi kwa uadilifu, kwa kujitolea, kwa bidii, ili tuweze kutengeneza taifa ambayo itatufaa sote. With those many remarks, my dear graduates, I pray for you and your families as you embark on serving the nation. May the Almighty God protect you and bless the work of your hands. And may He grant you the wisdom and fortitude to serve with distinction, even when you're faced with challenges and dangerous situations. On behalf of the government of Kenya and the people of Kenya, I wish you success in your service. Mungu awabariki na Mungu abariki taifa letu la Kenya. Asanteni sana.
Shukran za dhati. Tunaahidi yataweza kutimizwa. Parade Commander. Naam, ndio mwisho wa gwaride letu siku ya leo. Shukran za dhati Mheshimiwa Rais. Tunawatakia kila laheri maafisa wetu ambao sasa imekwisha thibitishwa kuwa mumekuwa maafisa kamili. Karibu katika kitengo cha polisi tawala kilicho chini ya huduma ya polisi nchini. Karibuni na pongezi tena sana kila mmoja. Mheshimiwa Rais, maafisa hawa wataweza kutumwa katika vitengo mbalimbali ili kuweza kupokeza huduma tofauti tofauti kwa kuhakikisha kila mwananchi katika pembe zote za taifa letu anapata huduma hiyo kwa njia inayofaa. wakielekezwa katika nyanja mbalimbali, wako chini ya mikono bora ya Parade Commander Senior Superintendent of Police Bwana Vincent Rotich. Naibu wake alikuwa Bwana Abraham Kemboi, Superintendent of Police, bila kumsahau Parade RSM Bwana Jekonia Ajoga.
Kwa umaridadi vile vile wakiaga ukurutu, sasa wameingia kwenye ngazi za maafisa kamilifu. Mheshimiwa Rais, tunasema asante sana kwa wale wote walioweza kuhakikisha shughuli hii itafana na imefana, na tunasema pia vile vile pongezi kwa wazazi kuweza kuwa wavumilivu wakati huu wa miezi 9 watoto walipokuwa kwenye chuo hiki cha mafunzo.
Wakiwa wamejigawa kwa makundi mbalimbali, Mheshimiwa Rais, inaashiria zile formations ambazo wataweza kujumuika nasi. Kuna wale ambao kesho wataweza kulenga pande ya Lamu wakiwa chini ya kitengo cha RDU ili kupokeza huduma kwa masuala ya dharura. Vile vile kuna wale wataweza kulenga maeneo ya Mandera chini ya kitengo cha RBPU kuhakikisha kuwa mipaka yetu iko salama masaa 28. Vile vile kuna wale ambao wataweza kulenga maeneo ya Baringo chini ya kitengo cha Asto kuhakikisha mifugo wetu wako salama. Tunawatakia kila laheri. Jameni, zingatia katiba, vile vile yale yote ambayo mliweza kufunzwa, bila kusahau hotuba ya Mheshimiwa Rais.
Vile vile pia nikiwahisi kwamba msisahau pia service standing orders zikiwa ndani yamo, na pia msisahau familia kama mlivyoelezwa. Mzingatie yale yote ambayo yameweza kusemwa.
Ni maafisa wameweza kupokezwa mafunzo ya kiwango cha haja, Mheshimiwa Rais, yakiwemo masomo ya kutunza na kutumia vizuri aina mbalimbali ya silaha, masomo ya kwata ambayo yamewasaidia kupata nidhamu ya kiwango cha haja. Vile vile wameweza kupokezwa masomo ya masuala ya sheria ili kuzingatia zile kanuni ambazo zinafaa kwa minajili ya kumpokeza mwananchi huduma ambayo inayohitajika, bila kusahau somo la ujanja wa porini ambalo limewakimu na mbinu mbalimbali za kupambana na magaidi kwa kuhakikisha usalama masaa 28.
Pia vile vile bila kusahau somo la saikolojia ambalo kwa wengi huwa ni matatizo baada ya kupata kazi, unashindwa namna ya kujikimu ama kujimudu. Waliweza kufunzwa vile vile hata masomo ya kuweza masomo ya kidini ili waweze kuishi vizuri kwenye kazi hii.
Shukrani za dhati pia ni kwa wanabendi wetu ambao wameweza kuhakikisha tuna muziki wa kutosha chini ya Madam Asnat Kedhuka, ambaye ni mama wa kuigwa na wengi kutokana na malezi yake mazuri na uongozi bora katika kitengo hicho cha muziki. Kamwe hatutamsahau kamanda wa chuo hiki Bwana James Kamau, ambaye amehakikisha kwamba yote yameweza kuafikiwa kwa kiwango kilichohitajika chini ya uelekezi bora wa naibu wa Inspector Generali Bwana Nur Gabo, bila kumsahau baba wa vikosi vyetu vile vile Engineer Jafet Kome. Shukrani za dhati kwa kila mmoja.
Niombe wazazi tafadhali mutulie mahali mlipo. Wanafunzi wataweza kurudi baadaye, kwa hiyo naomba tafadhali kwa heshima mutulie mahali mlipo.
Ni vikundi ambavyo vimeweza kumaliza kupita mbele ya Mheshimiwa Rais, bila kukisahau kile kikundi cha mwisho speciali ambacho kitajiunga na kikundi cha SGB ambacho hushughulika na masuala ya kulinda majengo maalum na vile vile na watu maarufu chini ya Parade Adjutant Bwana Wilfred Munove, Assistant Superintendent of Police.
Tunapolikunja jamvi hili la gwaride, Mheshimiwa Rais, wanaokuja sasa hivi ni walioweza kuwa parade commander, naibu parade commander, vile vile adjutant, wakifunga gwaride hili.
Jameni, tuwape makofi waliweza kufanya gwaride hili likafana. Bahati iliyoje kwa parade komanda kuweza kumsabahi Mheshimiwa Rais. Tumpe makofi tafadhali.
Basi Mheshimiwa Rais, tutarudi ndani ya kiwanja, nimpishe mwenzangu dada Sara aweze kuendelea na onyesho la silent drill. Karibu mwenzangu Sara.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Rais. Kwa sasa ni kipindi cha pili cha kwata la kunyamaa. Hili ni kwata lisilo na amri yeyote, ila tu ile ishara ya kwanza. Aliye katikati akiwa na kisu cha heshima ya gwaride si mwingine bali ni Inspector Godfrey Odinga. Atasaidiwa naye Sergeant Joseph Kamemi ambaye yuko nyuma yake. Mkono wake wa kulia Mheshimiwa Rais ni mwanadada wetu wa kipekee Corporal Sera Mwendwa, bila kumsahau aliye kushoto Corporal David Ngua, tayari kukupakulia gwaride la kwata la kunyamaa. Karibu Mheshimiwa Rais, uburudike. Hili ni kwata Mheshimiwa Rais ambalo lilifanywa kwa mara ya kwanza mbele ya Malkia kwa minajili ya kumfurahisha tu. Ndiposa kikosi hiki cha polisi tawala tukaweza pia kudaka kanuni hizo na amri zote ili kuweza kukupakulia kwa njia ya kipekee katika harusi hii ya 58. Ni maafisa ambao wameweza rasmi kufuzu siku ya leo, ambao wamekuandalia kwata hili chini ya wakufunzi hawa walio mbele yao. Kwa ruhusa yako Mheshimiwa Rais, naomba uweze kupokea saluti hiyo ambayo haina amri yeyote ila kwa kimya tu, ili uwakubalie waendelee na kwata hilo. Kwa ruhusa yako sana. Ndio umaridadi wao. Shukran za dhati Mheshimiwa Rais. Kwa sasa unaweza keti ili uweze kuburudika. Kumbuka ni kwata ambalo halina neno lolote ila tu ishara ambazo maafisa hawa wamezidaka vichwani mwao, tayari kukupakulia kwa miundo tofauti tofauti. Kumbuka ni wale wa kiume pamoja na wa kike Mheshimiwa Rais. Ni duara wametujengea ambayo inaashiria namna tumekita kila pembe ya taifa letu. Mheshimiwa Rais, maonyesho haya yanahitaji afisa ale vizuri, alale mapema na achape zoezi, ndiposa aweze kuwa na unyambuliko ambao unahitajika kwa minajili ya kunyanyua mguu kwa kilengo ama kiwango kinachohitajika. Wanapojumuika pamoja inaashiria namna baada ya tatizo lolote wasimamizi wetu huungana kwa pamoja ili kubadilishana maono kwa sababu ya kuafikia suluhu. Wanapogawana inamaanisha namna watakavyo pelekwa maeneo tofauti tofauti katika different formations za kikosi chetu ili kupokeza huduma mbalimbali. Maafisa hawa Mheshimiwa Rais wako kati ya miaka 19 na 23, wale ambao bado damu ni changa na ni moto, tayari kufanya kazi popote katika taifa letu. Mengine mnayoyaona tafadhali msije mkayajaribu nyumbani, kwani ni hatari iwapo haujafanya mazoezi mkaanza kurushiana majembe na mapanga. Hatari, msije mkajaribu hilo jameni. Namna wanavyofanya hatua mbalimbali bila amri yeyote ama yeyote kuwasimamia inaashiria jinsi Mheshimiwa Rais, maafisa hawa wako tayari kufanya kazi under no supervision or under minimal supervision. Ndio utamu wa gwaride hili, gwaride linalotupa kitambulisho cha kipekee kama wanapolisi tawala chini ya huduma ya polisi nchini. Furaha iliyoje jameni kwetu. Kumbuka harusi ni 58 tangu kuzaliwa kwa kikosi chetu. Hatua hizi zote Mheshimiwa Rais ukizihesabu tangu tulipoanza ni 1999. Kwa sasa tuko 1000 na kitu. Ukitembea nami hadi mwisho tutafika 1999. Asante, karibu tena Mheshimiwa Rais, uweze kupokea saluti hiyo ya mwisho ili waweze kuaga uga huu kwa heshima, tukirudisha asante kwa kuwezesha haya yote kufanyika chini ya uongozi wa serikali yako. Shukrani za dhati, tuwape makofi tafadhali. Asante tena sana Mheshimiwa Rais, ndio mwisho wa kwata letu la kunyamaa, kwata lisilo na amri yeyote. Kwa sasa Mheshimiwa Rais, tunaingia katika kipindi cha mwisho, kipindi cha upigaji picha.
Asante sana. Hebu tuwapigie makofi tena kwa vile wamependeza kabisa kwa hiyo hatua. Sasa tunaenda katika kipindi cha picha, na with your permission, Your Excellency, Sir, we would like to have 2 photos taken, one with the platoon commanders and one with the platoon sergeants. And with your permission, Your Excellency, we would like to now call upon the following to join them. To the right, we would like to have Sheikh Suleiman Malo. Please step forward and take your seat. Father Max Muisio. We have Bishop Dr. Kipkoech Kibet. We have PS and PS, that's Madam Banis, to also step forward. We have the Chair Commission, NPS Commission, Mr. Eliud Kinuthia. PS Correctional Services, Madam Mary Mudhoni. PS Interior, we have the CS Interior. Kindly would you join us for the photo and take the right side of the arrangement. If we can move to the right, please. Members of the clergy, if we can move to the right, and those that I've called. I'll repeat those names: Sheikh Suleiman Malo, Father Max Muisia, Bishop Dr. Kipkoech Kibet. We have the PS NPS, Madam Banis, all on the right. Mr. Eliud Kinuthia, who is the Chair NPS Commission. We have the PS Correctional Services, Madam Mary Mudhoni. PS Interior, we also have...
Nama mtazamaji, ndio kuelekea kwa tamati ama kufikia kwa tamati ya hafla hii ya kufuzu kwa makurutu 1995 wa polisi wa utawala katika chuo hiki cha mafunzo cha polisi wa utawala cha Embakasi, ambapo ni shughuli ya ama ni sherehe 58 tangu kuanzishwa kwa kikosi hiki cha polisi wa utawala. Kwa sasa ni wakati wa kupiga picha. Kumbuka ni hafla ambayo imehudhuriwa na Rais Dr. William Ruto, vile vile Naibu Rais Rigathi Gachagua pamoja na maafisa wakuu katika sekta ya usalama, akiwemo Waziri wa Usalama wa Ndani Profesa Kithure Kindiki na vile vile Inspector General wa Polisi Engineer Jafet Koome. Kwa hivyo ni tamati tu sasa ya hafla hii, ambapo picha ndio zinapigwa, alafu kisha baadaye rais pamoja na viongozi wengine watakuwa wanaondoka uwanjani. Wazazi wameweza kufika hapa kuwalaki watoto wao ambao kwa sasa wamefuzu na kuwa polisi kamili baada ya miezi 9 ya kufanya mafunzo ama ya kufanya mazoezi mbalimbali katika uwanja huu. Wameingia madarasani kufundishwa, na vile vile tumefahamishwa kwamba walielekea katika uwanja wa Kedong, ambapo huko kulikuwa na zoezi kali sana ambapo limeweza kuwapatia kile kinachohitajika katika kufanya kazi yao katika kutoa usalama kwa Wakenya katika mipaka mbalimbali ya humu nchini, na vile vile kumbuka kukabiliana na hali zote ama changamoto zote za kiusalama ambazo zinaonekana ama ambazo zinashuhudiwa humu nchini. Rais William Ruto katika hotuba yake kwa makurutu hawa ama kwa wale waliofuzu, basi amesema kwamba wanahitajika kuzingatia kanuni ama kushikilia kwa karibu sana katiba kulingana na mafunzo yao na kulingana na kazi yao wanavyotarajiwa kuifanya humu nchini, akiwataka kwamba wasijiingize katika hali za siasa bali wakaweze kufanya kazi yao kama inahitajika. Vile vile pia amewataka wakaweze kuwa na uadilifu katika kazi yao na pia kuhudumia Wakenya vyema, akisema uhusiano bora na Wakenya ama na raia ambao wao wanahudumia, akitaja kwamba raia ndio waliowapa kazi, na kwa hivyo basi wanafaa kudumisha uhusiano bora na raia ndipo waweze kufanya kazi yao vyema na kila Mkenya akaweze kuhisi kwamba ana usalama wa kutosha. Amezungumzia baadhi tu ya masala ambayo serikali pamoja na Wizara ya Usalama imeweka katika kuhakikisha kwamba maslahi ya afisa wa polisi yanazingatiwa na pia yanainuliwa, akitaja kuhusu masala ya kazi, vile vile masala ya afya, akisema kwamba kunazo hospitali ambazo zitakuwa zinawekwa kwa minajili tu ya kuhakikisha kwamba afisa wa polisi wanaweza kuhudumiwa bora katika hali yao ya kiafya, ya kiakili, na hospitali hizi ama huduma hizi zitakuwa zinasimamia matakwa yote ama mahitaji yote ya kiafya yanayohitajika kwa hawa polisi, ile inasemekana kuwa comprehensive health coverage, na vile vile anasema kwamba huduma hizi zitakuwa pia zinatolewa kwa familia zao. Cha msingi ni kwamba amesema serikali itazidi kujitolea kuhakikisha kwamba changamoto zozote za kiusalama zinazoshuhudiwa humu nchini zinakabiliwa na serikali iliyopo mamlakani kwa sasa, serikali anayoiongoza yeye, hususan akitaja swala la wizi wa mifugo na majangili wanaosumbua baadhi tu ya sehemu humu nchini, akitoa hakikisho kwa Wakenya na vile vile wale wakazi ambao wamekuwa na changamoto hii ya wizi wa kiujangili ama vile vile wizi wa mifugo, akisema kwamba serikali yake iliyoko sasa ndiyo itakayomaliza janga hili ama jinamizi hili la wizi wa mifugo na ujangili. Kwa hivyo ametoa hakikisho na kuwataka maafisa wa polisi kujitolea kwa hali zote kusaidia vile vikosi ama wale wenzao tayari walioko kazini kuhakikisha kwamba ajenda yake ya serikali na vile vile ajenda ya Kenya Kwanza ya kuhakikisha kuna usalama wa kutosha humu nchini inafanyika. Kwa sasa kama unavyoona ni kwamba rais basi atakuwa ni mwenye kuondoka baada ya kumaliza hatua hii ya mwisho ya kupiga picha, na atakuwa anaondoka, lakini mahafala ama wale waliofuzu siku hii ya leo basi watakuwa ni wenye kujumuika na familia yao. Wazazi wameweza kufika hapa angalau kufurahia pamoja na watoto wao ambao kwa sasa ni polisi kamili, baada ya kuwa mbali nao kwa miezi 9 kuweza kufanya mafunzo haya ama kuweza kutulia katika mafunzo haya angalau waweze kupata yale yanayohitajika kuweza kufanya kazi inayotakikana katika nyanja mbalimbali za humu nchini katika kutoa usalama. Kwa hivyo kwa sasa ni tamati tu. Picha unazoziona ni kwamba polisi wazazi watakuwa wanaweza kujumuika na watoto wao na vile vile kuweza kupiga picha kama kumbukumbu ya siku hii ya leo. Kunazo hotuba pia ambazo zimetolewa na waziri wa usalama Profesa Kithure Kindiki na vile vile mkuu wa ama polisi jenerali wa polisi Engineer Jafet Koome, wote wakisema kwamba watafanya kazi kuhakikisha kwamba ajenda za Kenya Kwanza zinatimizwa ipasavyo. Kufikia hapo sina la ziada, ni ruhusu tu ni kurudishe kwenye mtiririko wa vipindi vyetu vya kawaida katika Broadcasting House. Kwa niaba kikosi kizima kilichokuwa hapa shule ama chuoni cha mafunzo cha Embakasi, basi uniruhusu tu nikutakie mchana mwema na utazamaji mwema. Mimi ni Kamchemenza, kwa heri.